Los Angeles International Airport pulsed with morning chaos as Emma Rodriguez hurried through the terminal, the strap of her backpack digging into her shoulder no matter how many times she adjusted it. It was barely past 7, yet the building thrummed with announcements, the shuffle of shoes, and the scent of burnt coffee. This was her first time flying alone, her first step toward a new life in New York. And of course, Los Angeles traffic had conspired to make her late. She scanned the overhead signs, heart hammering as she searched for gate B23. Every passing minute tightened the knot in her stomach. She calculated the time in her head: 5 minutes to reach the gate, 5 more to stand in line, and tried to quicken her pace, the squeak of her hot pink Converse announcing her presence as she darted between rolling suitcases and distracted travelers. Then it happened, a sudden, jarring collision that sent her teeth clacking and her belongings scattering across the polished floor. Her backpack flipped open, spilling notebooks, pens, and an unfortunately conspicuous pack of tampons. Emma dropped to her knees, mortified, only to find herself staring up at a man who seemed straight out of a streaming service romance movie. He was tall, sharp, featured, his dark hair perfectly styled, his blue eyes an icy December sky. The tailored suit he wore probably cost more than her monthly rent. Instead of offering a sympathetic smile, he looked down at her with cool irritation. "You could at least watch where you're going," he said, his voice carrying the clipped edge of a New York accent. Emma, flustered and breathless, began an apology, but he cut her off with a remark about West Coast people and their laid-back timelines. Heat surged up her neck. She snatched the pack of tampons from his hand, stung by his condescension. The exchange escalated in quick bursts, her calling him a ridiculous, stuck-up jerk, him raising a perfectly groomed eyebrow and responding with controlled sarcasm. Around them, travelers streamed past, but for a moment it felt as though the entire terminal had narrowed to a private sparring ring. Emma hurled assumptions about silver spoons and inherited privilege, certain she had his type figured out, while he deflected with an unreadable calm that only irritated her more. Overhead, the final boarding call for Flight 847 broke the tension like a crack of thunder. Emma's stomach dropped. That was her flight to New York, the one chance to prove she was ready for this next chapter of her life. Without another word, she gathered her scattered belongings and sprinted toward the gate, leaving the infuriating stranger behind. Her heart still pounded from the confrontation as she joined the last trickle of passengers. She told herself she would never see him again, that he was just a blip in a stressful morning. But the memory of those piercing blue eyes and the sharp edge of their conversation clung to her like static. Even as she settled into her seat and tried to calm her racing thoughts, she couldn't shake the sense that the morning's turbulence was only the beginning of something much bigger than a delayed flight. Monday morning in Manhattan arrived with a crisp bite of autumn, and Emma Rodriguez felt every ounce of her nerves as she stood before the gleaming glass tower of Apex Innovation. The building's mirrored surface reflected a version of herself that looked far calmer than she felt, blazer neatly pressed, portfolio clutched tight, eyes wide with anticipation and dread. Just 3 days earlier, she had been a frantic traveler colliding with a stranger at LAX. Now she was about to start her dream job, only to discover that the man she had insulted in the airport was the very CEO she'd be reporting to. Each step toward the revolving doors felt heavier, as though she were walking into the world's most awkward déjà vu. Inside, the lobby radiated corporate sophistication. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, sunlight spilling through floor to ceiling windows, and a hush of controlled energy. At the reception desk, a woman with perfect hair and a professional smile introduced herself as Sarah, Nathan Blackwood's assistant. Sarah's tone was warm but held a subtle undercurrent of curiosity. as if she already knew about the infamous airport encounter. When Sarah announced that the CEO was eager to meet with you, Emma's stomach clenched. She had spent the entire weekend rehearsing possible apologies, yet none of them felt adequate for having called her new boss a ridiculous, stuck-up jerk. The elevator ride to the 45th floor stretched like an eternity. Emma's mind replayed every cutting remark she had hurled at him, each memory more mortifying than the last. When the doors finally opened, Nathan Blackwood was waiting, leaning casually against the frame of a corner office that looked out over Central Park. He wore a navy suit that brought out the startling blue of his eyes, his expression composed and unreadable. "Miss Rodriguez," he said in a neutral tone that gave nothing away, right on time. Emma followed him inside, her palms damp, her pulse quick. The office exuded quiet power, modern art, sleek furniture, walls lined with awards. She perched on the edge of a leather chair as he settled behind his desk, the silence between them stretching like a taut wire. When Nathan finally spoke, it wasn't to chastise her but to break the tension with dry humor. "This is awkward," he said, and despite herself, Emma let out a small, nervous laugh. Instead of reprimand, Nathan offered understanding. He asked what had led her to such a quick judgment, and when she faltered, he revealed his own story, growing up in Queens with hardworking parents, earning a scholarship to Columbia, delivering pizzas to fund his dream of building Apex from the ground up. Every word chipped away at the image Emma had painted of a privileged, entitled executive. Her assumptions dissolved, replaced by respect and a dawning admiration for his grit and honesty. Nathan made it clear that what mattered was her ability to do the job, not their chaotic introduction. By the end of the conversation, Emma felt the tension ease. She left his office relieved, humbled, and unexpectedly inspired, realizing that first impressions could be as misleading as they were unforgettable. The pressure of the Phoenix project hit Emma like a freight train the moment she stepped into the office on her third day. Apex Innovation had just landed Phoenix Industries as their biggest client, and the responsibility of redesigning their interface for a new level of user engagement fell squarely on Emma's shoulders. It wasn't just any project, it was a chance to prove herself in a way she hadn't imagined. Phoenix Industries had millions on the line, and their satisfaction was now tied directly to Emma's ability to deliver. The office buzzed with the usual energy, but Emma felt as though she was trapped in a bubble of self-doubt. Her new team, Jake the lead developer, and a handful of designers, had been working on the interface for weeks. But no matter how many times Emma reviewed the wireframes or reimagined the user flow, something was missing. The interface was functional, yes, but it didn't have that magic spark that would make Phoenix's CEO fall in love with it. Worse, the presentation was just days away, and she was running out of time to solve what seemed like an impossible problem. The weight of it all was starting to show. Emma would spend hours staring at the screen, trying to untangle the user experience, only to find herself back at square one. Her coffee cups piled up beside her as her mind raced with frustrations. She felt the silent pressure of Nathan's expectations, even though he didn't voice them directly. Every meeting, every check-in was a reminder that she had to perform at her best, and every comment from him carried weight. Nathan, in his polished CEO manner, had always been professional and calm, but Emma couldn't help feeling that there was a deeper layer of judgment she had to navigate. He'd seen her in her worst moment at the airport, and now she had to show him that she wasn't just some flustered, panicked designer, but someone capable of handling the magnitude of the job ahead. Through all this, Jake became her anchor. His easygoing humor and steady confidence kept her from drowning in anxiety. While Emma pushed herself to the edge, Jake worked tirelessly alongside her, offering both technical support and moral reassurance. He was always there with a joke, a coffee refill, or a reminder to take a breath. They fell into a rhythm. Emma would strategize the design, and Jake would translate it into code, with each iteration building on the last. Still, the elusive right solution felt out of reach. Every time Emma thought she had it figured out, another problem emerged. The breakthrough came unexpectedly during one of their late-night sessions. Emma, tired and running on fumes, stopped looking at the project from a designer's perspective and started thinking like a user. It was a simple shift, reimagining the flow from the standpoint of someone who wasn't a developer, but an executive needing to navigate the software quickly and intuitively. As she pieced the interface together, it clicked. The design didn't need to be overly technical or packed with options. It had to feel seamless, as though it was anticipating the user's needs before they even knew what they were. The clarity of purpose Emma had been searching for suddenly emerged, and the interface began to take shape, flowing with an elegance that matched the vision she had for it all along. Exhausted but elated, Emma looked over her work, a sense of pride and relief washing over her. The Phoenix project wasn't just about fixing a system. It was about elevating it, creating something that would stand out not just in terms of functionality, but in experience. She could see Nathan's impressed expression in her mind, and for the first time since meeting him, Emma felt she might actually be able to impress him in the way she truly wanted to. When the final slide of Emma's presentation faded from the screen, the conference room erupted into a low buzz of impressed murmurs. Phoenix Industries' notoriously demanding CEO, Victoria Chen, leaned back in her chair with a smile that carried more weight than any formal contract. "This," she said, tapping the tablet Emma had handed her, "is exactly what we were looking for." The words rang through Emma like a victory bell. Weeks of sleepless nights, endless revisions, and nerve-wracking trial runs had led to this moment. She'd not only delivered a design that worked, she'd redefined the user experience and secured a multi-million-dollar agreement for Apex innovation. The contract extension, tripling the original value to $36 million a year, was more than a professional triumph. It was validation of everything Emma had risked by moving across the country. As colleagues congratulated her, Nathan Blackwood's proud glance across the table was impossible to miss. He didn't simply look like a CEO basking in his team's success. There was something personal in the warmth of his eyes, something that made Emma's pulse quicken despite the crowd around them. After the Phoenix team departed and the conference room began to empty, Nathan approached her with the composed assurance of a leader, but the quiet intensity of a man holding back something more. "Could I speak with you privately?" he asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Emma nodded, trying to mask the sudden flutter of anticipation. In the quiet of his office, Nathan dropped the professional facade. He thanked her not just for the project's success, but for the brilliance and determination she had shown under pressure. His words carried an honesty that disarmed her completely. All the late nights, the tension between them, the subtle moments they'd both tried to ignore, suddenly it all coalesced into something undeniable. When he confessed that he couldn't stop thinking about her, that their connection went beyond the boundaries of office decorum, Emma felt the room tilt. For weeks she'd fought the pull she felt toward him, convincing herself it was nothing more than admiration for a talented leader. Yet as he brushed a strand of hair from her face and kissed her, the careful wall between them dissolved. Later that evening, away from the sterile glow of the office, the two of them finally allowed the world to fade. Nathan had arranged dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, a place steeped in warmth and candlelight. Over plates of fresh mozzarella and homemade pasta, They traded personal stories instead of corporate strategies, Nathan speaking of his grandmother's influence and the long climb from a modest childhood, Emma sharing her own fears and the leap of faith that brought her to New York. Laughter came easily, and the tension that had marked their earliest encounters gave way to something far more intimate. By the time he walked her home, their hands intertwined, Emma knew they had crossed a threshold. What began as a combative meeting in an airport terminal had transformed into a partnership that blended ambition, respect, and a deepening affection neither of them could, or wanted to deny. Accepting the San Francisco assignment was the kind of career leap Emma had once only dreamed about, yet the decision carried a weight that settled deep in her chest. She knew it meant 6 months away from New York, from the team she'd come to love, and from Nathan, the man who had become far more than her boss. Still, every conversation with him reinforced the same quiet truth. He wanted her to chase her ambitions as fiercely as he pursued his own. His unwavering support turned what could have felt like a sacrifice into an act of shared courage. When he gave her the delicate gold necklace shaped like a tiny airplane, telling her it was a reminder that she always had a place to land, Emma felt the mix of excitement and fear soften into something steadier. This wasn't just about distance, it was about trust. The weeks leading up to her departure became a lesson in balancing tenderness with independence. They stole moments between meetings, exchanged teasing messages during late-night work sessions, and learned how to express affection in ways small enough to escape the notice of colleagues, but meaningful enough to carry them through the upcoming separation. Nathan's pride in her success never wavered. He spoke of her talent in front of the entire company, treated her ideas with the respect of an equal, and reminded her whenever doubt crept in that she had earned every opportunity before her. It was that constant affirmation, more than any romantic gesture, that convinced Emma they were building something real. In San Francisco, the new project demanded every ounce of her skill. The Phoenix expansion was enormous, dozens of subsidiary companies, thousands of users, a complex web of logistics. She threw herself into the challenge, drawing on everything she had learned in New York and pushing herself to innovate further. Each successful milestone, each late-night breakthrough, came with a quick video call or text to Nathan. He became her quiet witness from 3,000 miles away, celebrating every win and offering steady reassurance when the workload felt overwhelming. Their conversations were sometimes brief shared smiles on a screen, good-night messages sent across time zones. But they carried an intimacy that distance couldn't erode. The separation wasn't easy. There were nights when Emma ached to feel his arms around her, when the glow of the city lights outside her window felt lonelier than inspiring. Yet every time they spoke, Nathan's voice grounded her. He counted the days until her next visit, made plans for weekends together, and always ended with the same promise: "We'll figure this out." Slowly, Emma realized that their relationship wasn't surviving despite the distance. It was thriving because of the trust they had chosen to build. She was proving to herself and to him that love didn't have to mean compromise of ambition. By the time the project neared completion and her return to New York drew close, Emma understood that the miles between them had forged something stronger than proximity ever could. They had built a partnership defined by respect, ambition, and the certainty that no matter how far she flew, they would always find their way back to each other.